I returned my neighbor's new laptop to the shipping office, by user JHW7753. My neighbor and I aren't friends, but we wave when passing in vehicles or walking. About a year ago, my wife had ordered something for one of our kids and it was delivered to the wrong house. Our house numbers and mailboxes are very similar and easy to confuse. Picture 668 and 688. After a couple days, I called and they sent me the photo taken of the box on my neighbor's porch, so I walked over to retrieve it and was told I brought it back to the shipping hub. I was heading in that direction anyway. When I asked why he didn't either text me or just walk next door, he didn't have an answer. Okay, very frustrating. It took 5 more days for our item to arrive, lol. Well, on Friday afternoon I'm WFH, and I see a box is delivered to my porch. I go out to get it, see it's his package. On the small return portion of the ship label it says, Lenovo, 1-day rush, and the shipping sticker says like $31.39. My neighbor assumably ordered a laptop by the weight of it and rushed it over. I picked it up and went straight to the shipping center, after all my errands were done, so I was walking in at 4:50. Didn't want to risk they would try to redeliver it before end of day. Yesterday he comes over with the photo of the box on my front deck to ask if I have his box and that it's important, and I respond I brought it back to be redelivered. He looks almost enraged and says why. I said that's the exact same question I asked you when you did it previously. Just thought this was what you wanted going forward. LOL. He was walking down my driveway, shaking his head extra dramatically, but what's good for one should be good for all, no? Use my email as your spam dump? Prepare to be carpet bombed, by user Crazy Islander. One day, many years ago, I got an email addressed to someone who had the same first initial and last name as I do. For the purpose of this story, I'll call him G-Man. As with anyone who uses a common email address, think first initial and last name, you sometimes get an email that isn't meant for you. It was mostly incidental things like receipts and the occasional personal email. I was chalking them up to being a data entry error. Perhaps they misheard the email address and instead of typing in GC, last name, at gmail.com, they typed in G, last name, at gmail.com. No big deal. In the cases where I could, I'd politely reply to the sender and let them know that I wasn't the intended recipient and to please let G-Man know that he's giving out the wrong email address going forward. It was never successful. I'd still get emails for G-Man, and it was for things that I'd think you'd want to receive, like order receipts or something that had a confirmation number attached to it. I tried to track down G-Man, but to no avail. There were multiple G-Man, last name, on social media, so I could never 100% confirm which one it might have been. And so this went on and on for years. Until finally one day, I got a personal email address to G-Man that referenced the company he worked for. Aha! Now I had something. I looked him up. It turns out that G-Man is the systems manager at said company. His LinkedIn bio says that he's an IT professional. That's interesting. I find his company email and forward him the email, also advising him that the other address he's using is attached to another person and it would be great if he could be more mindful of what he's typing in or giving out. Again, I was polite in my request to him. He replied and apologized. I thought, it's finally over. But it wasn't over. Oh no, far from it. The emails I received that were addressed to G-Man actually began to increase in volume. Now I'm getting emails for mailing lists and account signups and all sorts of other crap. This guy, this so-called IT professional, is clearly using my email address as his spam dump, knowing that it went to an actual person. I would have to sort through dozens upon dozens upon dozens of emails daily as a result of this, and as we all know, once you're on one mailing list, you tend to end on a lot more mailing lists. By now, I've decided that clearly this clown is deliberately being a jackass, so it's gloves off and game on. I decide to extract revenge at any opportunity. It started out simple enough. If I got an account sign up, I'd click the link to verify it and then promptly log in and deactivate the account. It worked for a bit, but then there would be another sign up, so I got more creative. I'd log into the account, change all the information and, most importantly, the password, usually to something like I am a gigantic asshole, which would leave the account active, but totally inaccessible since any attempt at password recovery sent the email to my account, which was then promptly ignored and deleted. Hotel booking? I'd log on and cancel it the day before he was due to arrive. I'm guessing he never got notice though, since it was all coming to my email. Basically anything I could do that would inconvenience G-Man, I'd do it. This back and forth continued on for years. In fact, I still occasionally get emails for the guy. Then one day, it happened. I got an email receipt for an order that G-Man had placed. It had the recipient's name and address, but more importantly, it had G-Man's address on it. Queue up, I've got a golden ticket. I finally had the means of the ultimate revenge. I took his address and I signed him up for everything I could find. Free samples, i.e., adult diapers, feminine products and lube, catalogs, normal, not so normal and raunchy. I spent an entire day finding anything I could enter his address into and dutifully filled it out. But the coup de grace, the cherry on top. When I was finding things to sign up for, I stumbled onto a website that allowed you to order free flooring samples. They'd be various sizes, but some were 12x12 squares. Carpet, tile, wood, linoleum, whatever. I signed G-Man up for every sample I could. Then I found another site offering the same thing and I did it again, and again, and again, until the point where I literally lost track of how many free flooring samples I signed him up for. My guess, it was easily in the hundreds, if not thousands. I literally carpet bombed G-Man. Coincidentally, the email volume certainly decreased. I never heard from G-Man either. Maybe he deleted my initial email and forgot, or maybe he was buried under all those flooring samples. Either I'm sure once they started to arrive, he realized his mistake. I bet that to this day he still gets items delivered to that address. Sold out means sold out, by user Rodiem0m. So, this happened many years ago when I used to work for a very well-known hotel chain. We were coming up to a very busy event weekend and were already completely sold out for Saturday night. We could accommodate walk-ins Friday night, but for only one night. This was expressed to all walk-ins who came to check in that they could not stay both Friday and Saturday. One set of folks checked in Friday night and were laughing as they went to their room, already with the mindset that they were not checking out and were going to stay both nights. These rooms were booked a year in advance, for this event and prepaid. We were certainly not going to try to send someone who prepaid away BC of these jerks. The next morning they left to go out for the day and left all their stuff in their room. They were reminded that checkout was noon. Again they laughed and said they weren't leaving. We had housekeeping pack up all their stuff and bring it down to the front desk area and waited their return. Imagine their surprise when they wasted the whole day and came back to find out that we had already rekeyed the room, and other people were already in it. We gave them their stuff and they were in shock. They thought that their little trick was going to get them to stay during this event. Nope. The entire city was sold out, so good luck with that. They took corporate's numbers so they could complain. LOL. It still makes me laugh, and that was over 30 years ago. I took a manager's idea for a birthday cake because she wouldn't let me go home, by user Jedin Losarufo. I like to bake and even took a cake class. I used to work in a call center. There was a manager, Kate, that worked there and was essentially a FWB with my manager, Sawyer. I hated her a lot. She was really annoying and thought she was better than everyone. She was snobby about her position. One year that I was there, when the new year rolled around and started, I was sick. Really sick. Puking, restroom trips, coughing, the works. I could barely stay on the phone. I went to Kate and told her, only manager there, and asked to go home. She said no. If you go home, you will lose your job. Is what she said exactly and continued to mindlessly click on her computer. I had days or hours to cover it but I was like, 20 years old and obviously didn't want any chance of losing my job. So I went back to work. Very mad and sick. A couple months later I was sitting in front of manager Sun's desk. Then Kate came to speak to Sunday. She says, I'm going to make Sawyer an island-themed cake for his birthday. She then began to make jokes between her and Sun that she hopes she can do it, it'll only be box cake because she knows she can't bake and blah blah blah. I asked to see what cake she's going to bake. Extremely simple. So then it hit me. I'm going to make this exact island-themed cake and make it better than she ever could. So I did that night. I brought it into work the next day and gave it to Sawyer in front of everyone. Everyone loved the cake, thought it was cool. Sawyer loved the cake. Kate hated it. She was butthurt and gave cat butt face every time I talked to her for months after. A lawyer's petty revenge on a sovereign citizen, by user call it in the 90s. I run across sovereign citizens now and again, the kind that like to file bogus legal documents, filled with Latin phrases, and notarized with a red seal to make everything official. These guys think legal terms are like incantations or spells. If you just say the right thing in a document, your legal problem magically disappears. Lawyers and judges hate these guys. They are super annoying. Years ago I broke one of my rules, and took on a case for a friend. It was a family estate squabble, and my client's brother owed him money. The SOVCIT brother got his greedy hands on his father's money outside of the estate process by getting himself made joint with his elderly father on some bank accounts. Pulling that stunt is a no-no in Canada. Definitely frowned upon by the courts. But so far as SOVCIT man was concerned, it was finders keepers all the way, and his fathers will be damned. I sent SOVCIT man a letter demanding that he pay, and he stuck to the SOVCIT playbook. He paid my client with a check. The check was not your normal check, drawn on an actual bank account. Instead, it was some weird bullshitty thing that he got off the web. The bank the check was drawn on didn't exist, and the check had all kinds of strange wording in fine print on the back. The thing about these SOVCIT guys, is that they have no notion of the consequences of the bogus documents and bad advice that they get off the web. SOVCIT man made a huge mistake by sending me the bogus check. "Can I cash this?" my client said when I showed him the check. "Go for it, but tell the bank in advance that you know it won't clear, so that they won't think you're pulling a scam." So my client cashes the check, and of course it bounces with extreme prejudice. After the check bounced, we sued the brother for the money he stole from the estate. It was a short, simple lawsuit, just a few pages long. We served the brother at the house he owned, free and clear thanks to the money he stole from the estate. The guy had 30 days to defend, and on day 30, I got his defense, filled with the usual SOVCIT nonsense. The defense also had a huge mistake in it, one of the biggest I've ever seen, and I've been doing this a long time. SOVCIT man started harassing me and my staff. He sent emails. He sent letters. He left voicemail messages. He came by the office uninvited, demanding to see me and making threats. He kept it up until the cops said they'd arrest him if he came by again, but by then, it was time for his court date. So I'm in court, asking for judgment, and the SOVCIT genius is there, talking his legal babble, saying words he doesn't understand. The judge shut him down after about 10 seconds, and gave my client judgment. SOVCIT man has a meltdown, and is escorted out of the courthouse. Of course he appeals, but I don't care, because of the mistake the guy had made right out of the gate. His mistake was serious and fatal. I don't know about other countries, but in Canada if someone gives you a check and it fails to clear, you can sue for that. All you have to do is prove that a check written to you bounced, and that's all you need. The court will give you judgment. So when SOVCIT man sent my client the bogus check, he handed my client an airtight cause of action, an easy win of a lawsuit. And of course I pounced on it. When SOVCIT man's check bounced, my client sued him for that, too, in a separate legal proceeding that we started on the same day as the estate case. The two claims looked almost identical, at least on the front page. My client's name was the same, the defendant's name was the same, and the court file number was identical but for the final digit. When we served SOVCIT man with Claim 1, the estate claim, we also sued him on Claim 2, the bad check claim. I think he thought that the second claim was just a copy of the first, because he only defended the estate action. On the bad check case, he didn't defend, and I had default judgment after 30 days. So a few months later SOVCIT man wants to negotiate. He's feeling magnanimous, he says, and even though the estate case is under appeal, an appeal he said he was sure to win, he was willing to throw his brother a bone. He'd pay, but nowhere near the amount of the judgment. It was then that I let him know that we'd sued twice, and that I had a judgment in the second action as well as the first, and that now the man's home was totally tied up with the writs I filed. "You better hope you win that appeal," I said to him, "because you are literally betting your house on it." SOVCIT man did his usual meltdown thing, but once he was finished with the screaming and the threats, he had a bit of a come-to-Jesus moment. We settled with him, sort of. He paid back all the money he stole from the estate, plus all my client's legal fees, plus some more, just for being a bit of a dick and a sovereign citizen to boot. Later that year he was at my client's house for Christmas dinner. Go figure. Families can be pretty weird.